Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson, and as always, welcome back to the show. For those that are already subscribers, thanks for being here. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so that way you can see more great interviews of regional MMA fighters or anybody that's kind of exciting in the MMA world. And today we've got a first-time guest of the show, which is always exciting, and this one's even more special in the sense that he is about ready to debut in MMA for 247 Fighting Championships at Brawl in the Burgh 20. Very excited to have on Gorilla House Gym's own Tyler Dilbert. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Hey, Luke.
It's great having you on the show. You're going to be making your debut at middleweight, 185 pounds against the 1-1 Paul Dodson, which is very exciting at Brawl in the Burgh 20 for 247 Fighting Championships, February 24th, which at this point is 13 days away. Very exciting. But before we jump into that, let's back up, talk about what got you into MMA. And even before that, I do know people might know you from your wrestling days, a three-time national qualifier at NAIA when you went to a private school that was enrolled, a college that was enrolled in NAIA. So three-time national qualifier is fantastic. And in Pennsylvania, back in 2013, when you were in high school, you took 7th place at state. So what got you into wrestling? How old were you when you started practicing it and conditioning for it? And then talk to me a little bit about your journey. I know the highlights, but fill in a little bit of the gaps in your wrestling career.
Sure. So I started wrestling when I was 5. It's something just everyone in my family did. All my cousins, my dad, my uncles, everyone wrestled. So my dad got me into it. It was the first sport I was ever involved in, that and then T-ball. But so I started wrestling when I was 5. Funny story, I was not very good at it when I started. I think it took me 4 years to finally win a match. So I was about 9 when I started winning a match here or there. From there, I just kind of fell in love with the sport. Once it was always something fun to do, but then starting to have success, I just fell in love with it. And then by the time I got to high school, I was completely bought in. At that point, I'd done a lot of the bigger youth wrestling tournaments back in that day. When I was high school, I mean, I was all in on going to college to wrestle. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and since then, wrestling in high school, I had a lot of success. Got the opportunity to go on to college, and after my success that I had there, I mean, I've stuck with the sport. I've been coaching wrestling at my high school ever since I graduated college. So I think I've been there 7 years now, helping out both junior high and varsity.
And what high school is that where you're coaching and where you went?
Chestnut Ridge High School.
And what's that experience been like coaching versus when you were competing? What's that like for you as a person to be coaching a sport you love? And also what's it like coaching at your alma mater? Because that's got to bring up some kind of cool experiences as well.
Yeah. I mean, competing, it was, especially growing up in like the first 2 years I was in high school, our team was average, but we weren't really at a high level. So at that point, just, I know now with a lot of the youth wrestling, it's a lot of team duels. But back then it was just all individual. So a lot of it for me as a competitor was individual success. And then my junior and senior year, we had a lot more team success. So that kind of opened my eyes to a little bit helping out and giving back to the program to kind of continue to build it up. Once I graduated college, I mean, I knew I wanted to come back and help. And a lot of the memories we had that kind of popped up from when I was competing, since I graduated at Chestnut Ridge, we've done extremely well at the state level. I think the first 3 years we finished 3rd in the state as a team. So those 3 years, they were super exciting, and just being able to help other people kind of have similar, better success than what I did and help them achieve their goals. That's really what I love the most about coaching. I know now I've been helping out with our junior high program, And like that age, you see them grow so much. So a lot of it with that is just from the beginning of the year, because we just finished up our regular season, pretty much yesterday. But just from the beginning of the year till now, just watching some of the kids, how much they improve. That's why I do it. I think a little bit of it is I got a lot out of the sport. So a lot of it to me is giving back more than what I got out of it. So being able to do that, it's something that it gets me excited every November once wrestling season starts back up.
That's a super great insight. I always think there's aspects of being an athlete that you can be a great athlete, not a great coach. And so it's great that you have to have both aspects about competition and really being dedicated to getting better as an athlete, but also that nurturing, that teaching, that has to come from being a coach. So that sounds like an absolutely great time. I'm sure Chestnut Ridge is happy to have you. And what were the highlights from states this year? Did you guys take a place as a team? Any team placing or individuals?
So that just finished up with team states yesterday. So I think we finished top 6. So the high school team made the state semifinals, where they ended up losing to Bishop McCourt, and then they lost their next match. They didn't bring home a medal, but they were still top 6 in the state. So they did extremely well this year.
That's great. And as we transition now to talking about your MMA debut, what led you as a person, with all this experience in wrestling, what led you to start being interested in MMA? And then how did you get connected to Gorilla House Gym in Altoona?
Sure. I've always been a fan of MMA. I remember growing up playing UFC video games, watching fight nights, and just kind of being around the sport because it was something new. It was pretty similar to what wrestling is. Wrestling's a big part of it, along with other martial arts. After school, I was focused really just on coaching, and then just other things that were going on in my life. But Dan Albright, so him and I were actually practice partners in high school. So we practiced together every day for 2.5 years. Still very close friends, one of my best friends. But so he had been fighting, and every once in a while I'd go roll with him just to give him a different look, just from a college wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year and a half ago, he was getting ready for one of his fights. I'm not sure which one it was, but that was right after I think Sheldon Nyhoff moved. So he was getting ready for the fight, and he asked me to come in just to help with his camp, just so he'd have someone bigger to wrestle and grapple with while I was getting ready. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I went in a couple times, and for a while, really after college, like I didn't have the same drive to compete as what I did while in school. It was just one of those things that kind of started fading away over time, just not being involved with it. But then getting in there and working with him, and then Cam and Ethan, just that little bit getting ready for that fight, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, all right, I'm gonna see how this goes, and I'll train, and then if we think I can get a fight, then we'll go for it. So I know the past year, really since I think May, we've been working on getting to a fight. Just for whatever reasons, it hasn't worked out up until now, but I'm excited that it had so far so good right now. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Shout out to Dan Albright, great guy, really, just a wonderful guy, and currently in the Army National Guard. Wife, kids, wonderful fighter. Picked up a heavyweight title, I think, somewhere. Plus, he's fought for 247 several times. What's it like being coached? You mentioned some of your teammates. The champ, first ever pro double champ. Hopefully, you guys call him champ like that. Ethan, the Wolverine Goss, and obviously, you mentioned the former several time amateur champ for 247, the Mole Rat Allgaier. But what's it been like being coached as far as being a part of the fight team when you transitioned from being like a training partner to a member of the fight team under Coach Ross and Coach Cassidy? What's it been like being coached by them as you gear up for your debut?
I I mean, they both do a great job of. They did a great job of getting Ethan, Cam, Dan ready for fights. Other fight camps I've been a part of, and so far it's done a great job getting me ready. I've known Darren for quite a while. His oldest son, uh, Hayden, I actually coached him for a year, and then coached Cross a little bit when he was in elementary. So I mean, Darren's always fun to work with because it's always focusing on getting better, whether or not you're the go guy when we're doing the drill. We're trying to get as much out of it, whether you're the guy leading the drill or the guy giving a good look. I didn't know Ray really till I started there at Gorilla House, and Ray's awesome. He's super knowledgeable about grappling and jiu-jitsu, but just it's almost like he blows my mind every time we're going over technique because I'm like, because I mean I like to think of myself as pretty knowledgeable when it comes to wrestling, but then just the different aspects of grappling, I'm just like I had never thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. But love both of them. They're so far they've done a fantastic job, and feel like I'm ready to go. Just a couple, little under 2 weeks away.
Yeah, being 2 weeks away, coming out of a great gym that's been known to create really great, well rounded fighters, a lot of great strikers and submission, both. It's not heavy to one side or another. You guys obviously have a lot of wrestling talent there, but clearly a lot of great striking comes out of there as well. I've talked to the champ, so I know that he's excited about you making this debut. I believe the whole gym sounds like you've been looking for to make your debut for right around a year. So obviously now you're really ready. Let's talk about that though. You're taking on a guy who's 1-1. So in amateur MMA, it makes sense. You're a debuter. You got to take a fight that's always willing to take. But what makes you confident to go up against a guy who's already been in the cage twice? And then let's start talking about how you think this fight's going to go for you on the 24th of February at Brawl in the Burgh 20.
I mean, yeah, someone having two two fights under their belt. I mean, it kind of just is what it is, you know. But I mean, just like from a competition standpoint, like, I mean, I've competed on big stages pretty much my whole life, whether that be in high school, wrestling down at the Giant Center, or in college, wrestling on various big stages and nationals and arenas, as well as just like out at Fargo. So I mean, just from a competition standpoint, like I've been experienced in combat sports pretty much my whole life. So that aspect of it, I feel pretty good about. I mean, I know once you get in a cage, it might be a little different, but it's just a pretty similar feeling getting into that kind of mindset and getting ready for it. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it.
Okay. And how do you see this fight going? Do you want to make a prediction about how it's going to go for you when you're in there, or what are your thoughts on this fight specifically?
Uh, I mean, I like the fight. Um, Paul has he's been in there twice before. Um, I know he's more of a striker and I'm more of a grappler. So it's not hard to figure out what the game plan is for each of us. But I know with that, I mean, I'm not big on predictions. It's just go out and make sure I'm performing to the best of my ability, and whatever ends up happening happens. I mean, if I go in and it's maximum effort, then regardless of what happens, is kind of the outcome will be what it is. I think no matter what, you learn from it. But I mean, the goal is to go out and win. You don't always just know how you're going to do that. You kind of have to adjust on the fly if you have to.
Sure. And that, like what you said there, it's a great mindset, particularly if you're middle school or high school wrestlers are watching this. Like you can always control your output, your effort. And sometimes that doesn't mean you control the outcome. A lot of times there's somebody else that's, going toe for you in there, but you can always control your response to what they're doing, your outcome, your effort. And then already before the fight, before you ever make the walk, you have that learner's mindset. You learn from a win, you learn from a loss. And I think that that's the process, right? So super excited to have you. I know that it's going to be an incredible night. First time for 247 being at that event, and I believe that means that the event is slightly closer to you guys. What's it like? Do you have what's your fan support going to be like? Is there going to be a lot of people in person cheering you on, or on 247fighting.com for the pay-per-view? How do you see the crowd response going as far as support for you?
I mean, I know I'm gonna have some people there that are there to support me. I know with it being still in the middle of wrestling season, a lot of our guys are at districts that week. So a lot of them probably be watching pay-per-view. So they have their own event going on, and I still know they're supporting me. It's just unfortunately I don't get to be there in person. But I do know I still have some people coming out to come watch it live. And then as well as just some other people in the community. I know working where I do, a lot of the people I work with still have to work on Sundays. I know they're going to be pay-per-view. So I know there's support there. It just might not always be in person.
Gotcha. Well, it's incredible to know that this fight is going to be your debut fight. Plus, there's already an incredible card. In addition to your debut, amateur belts on the line, pro pro fights. I mean, the whole card's stacked. What card or event have you been to, whether it's for 247 ideally, and what do you remember? Have you been to a fight where you've already seen Ethan win, or maybe Dan the Man, big man Dan Albright? What was that like as a fan, or maybe even as a cornerman, to really see what it's like being close to the cage?
Sure. So I know a couple of Dan's fights that for 247. I think I've been to all of his. I know I missed one of Ethan's fights, but the most recent one where he picked up a second title against Solo.
Oh,
So I was there. I was in the back helping him warm up and everything. I mean, that part of it was cool because I mean, as a fan going, you kind of see him once they get out there and ready to compete. But being backstage with Ethan and kind of seeing how he approaches getting ready for his fight, and actually getting to warm up with him a little bit and help him get ready, that was a cool experience because I just hadn't really saw it before. But then being close to ringside, I mean, it's super exciting. I mean, we have one of your teammates in there, and I mean, you're practicing, working with them in the gym every day. I mean, honestly, I always feel like I'm more invested as a spectator than I am as a competitor to a point where, I mean, because mostly you're there watching, and you can't really control anything that happens. I mean, it's really out of your hands. But yeah, that was every 247 event I've been to. I mean, it's been a great time, and it's always been exciting.
well, I think that's great that you've already been there. You know, some debuters have never been in an MMA fight live, and then they fight. And if that works for them, great. But I think not only does it kind of help you see kind of what happens, getting the behind the scenes, how people warm up. You know, obviously warming up the double champ goes a long way. I know he's a guy that's fought all over cards because he's been in the business for 100 years, and so he obviously can kind of gauge like when you start warming up. If you're the main event is different than if you're earlier in the card. You'll be earlier in the card, but you know, figuring out when to warm up and what is too much of a warm up and all that stuff goes a long way. I can't wait to see your fight, all the other fights. Great reminder for people. It sounds like a lot of people are be getting the pay-per-view through the app 247 Live that they can download on any device, or 247fighting.com. Just make sure you click Tyler Dilbert's name to give him credit. And then also, if you're buying tickets from 247fighting.com, that would be great. I can't wait to see you and all the other fights live. A special thanks, Tyler, for coming on, and a big thanks to the champ for reminding me, kind of saying like, hey, get Tyler on the show. So big thanks to him. Thanks for you coming on. Looking forward to having you on many times in the future. If this becomes something you do, I won't ask you now kind of what your goal is, because it's one fight at a time. But, you know, you get the win and come back on. We'll talk about kind of what you want going forward. But it's been great having you on the show. You've been listening to Luke Basin from MMA Fancast, but first time gets to the show representing Gorilla House Gym, Tyler Dilbert. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Yep. Thanks, Luke.
You got it.